Two of the most hyped Chinese anime in recent times might be fooling you. Is Lord of Mysteries really as confusing as people say? And what about To Be Hero X? Is it just another show in the oversaturated superhero genre? The truth is, one of them is absolute cinema, while the other a huge disappointment. Do you know which is which? I watched both, and then rewatched both, and even dug into extra material for each one. And with that, I'm going to show you by the end of this video why one of them is the real new king of Donghua, while the other might not deserve all the hype it got. So it doesn't matter if you're a confident hero or a nighthawk. Drop a like and subscribe, because today I'm gonna open your eyes about these Chinese giants. Seibaa! There's a lot for us to talk about. The technical side, world building, characters, but before we let these two really duke it out, you need to remember the premise for each one. Lord of Mysteries is an adaptation of a web novel and an isekai that wisely uses the term transmigration, so we don't immediately assume it's a piece of shit. Its plot shows a young man waking up inside another guy who had just taken his own life, and we follow him through a mysterious world as he tries to get back home and figure out why there was a hole in his forehead. Meanwhile, To Be Hero X is an original anime that tells its story non-linearly with several different heroes, in a world where confidence is synonymous with power, and hero agencies are synonymous with total ass. Therefore, the first is more intimate, almost always through one person's eyes, while the second keeps switching points of view all the time, and can be confusing by not following a traditional chronological order. But this difference only exists thanks to the show's characters, who are essential when comparing the two. To Be Hero X showcases several different figures, whether civilians or superpower, but its main focus is on the story's top 10 heroes, ranging from a boy whose power is masochism to a ghost runner with extra assassin aura. On the other hand, Lord of Mysteries finally gives proper screen time to Klein, the story's sole protagonist, who is accompanied by members of a secret organization. Among them, we can especially mention Old Neil, who is very old, Leonard, who sometimes seems like he wants to fuck the protagonist, and the captain is the team's captain.
Just smile and wave, boys.
With that, To Be Hero X has the chance to tackle its world and narrative from several different angles, but it risks getting tangled up amid so many characters, while Lord of Mysteries aims for tighter cohesion in the plot's perspective thanks to its single narrator. But you can't analyze these stories only through their characters, because the universe they inhabit is a crucial point too. In Lord of Mysteries, we're thrown into a Victorian world where everything is rich in detail and feels carefully thought out, from occultism to witchcraft worthy of the Witch of 71, where monsters lurk around corners and the mysteries are so mysterious that not even the Scooby-Doo gang could solve them, and you probably couldn't either, unless you watch the anime's extra content. But hold on, we'll get to that in a sec, because in To Be Hero X, we get a contemporary high-tech universe dominated by heroes and everything related to them. At first, nothing too different from what you'd see in a The Boys-styled world, which might give you the feeling it's just more of the same, but that's not true, because the anime shows originality by turning the level of confidence heroes receive or the fear in people's hearts into sources of power that can spring from acts of bravery or from behind the scenes manipulation. Yes, here even saving a cat from a tree can turn you into Superman. On the other hand, as complex as Lord of Mysteries' world may be, it still gets you to understand the essential, the system of pathways where people can go from ordinary civilians to beyonders, and maybe reach the level of the gods. Also, it's impossible to forget this when they repeat the info in the opening of every single episode. But neither of these two worlds would truly come to life if it weren't for their production, something that already starts to hint at each one's strengths and weaknesses. Both have top-tier animation, but while the hero anime is more colorful and experimental with its shifting styles, the mystery one has a cold, atmospheric tone that only experiments when the camera starts breakdancing. In addition, To Be Hero X uses its animation as an important narrative element, and Lord of Mysteries is stuck with the tough job of translating all the book's details to the screen. Another thing worth mentioning is the OSTs, not exactly on Barbie Girl's level, but quite fitting in Lord of Mysteries' case, always adapting to the scene and helping the show's atmosphere. On the other hand, To Be Hero X's score is good, but slips up at times. It's like they put an epic Elden Ring track on while you're trying to flirt with your crushing persona. Actually, that sounds pretty fitting. Well, then it's like putting a cutesy song on while we're exterminating demons or something. The important thing is that, in technical terms, Lord of Mysteries is a bit better for having smoother animation and a consistent soundtrack, but you can't judge this anime on the technical side alone. That's why from here on out, we're going to see how each one combines the aspects we mentioned to actually work, which will make the difference between the two increasingly clear. But first, don't forget to drop in the comments which one is your favorite. Starting with To Be Hero X, it's true the plot presents many perspectives and time jumps, but none of that becomes confusing because we get key events and visual cues that make it clear which period a given story is taking place in. If you pay the slightest attention, you'll understand what's going on. That makes everything more interesting to follow and keeps you curious to see how all the events connect, just like in a Tarantino banger.
你他妈的会说普通话吗？
On the other hand, the confusion in Lord of Mysteries comes from a universe packed with specific information. It's not the events, but small details that heavily impact how the plot unfolds. The anime prefers to present these elements visually, or with lines that seem tossed in, so you need to pay close attention to start grasping what's happening. Even so, there are several things that simply have no explanation within the episodes, like how did the guy clean the blood from the room so easily? That stuff is hard to wash out, and I say that from experience of watching Breaking Bad. Seriously, some events and lines are impossible to understand, but you don't feel like something is wrong, you feel like something is missing. Maybe that's why they made old news's mysticism classes, special episodes that explain universe details in a totally expository, sleep-inducing way. On top of that, we also get these cute extras that complement the story with light-hearted moments. So together, they make it clear that a lot of important stuff was cut from the web novel, a problem To Be Hero X doesn't have, since it's an original narrative made for the anime. It's normal for a story like Lord of Mysteries to make us learn everything about its universe alongside the protagonist, but here, much of that learning is skipped. Some say this was necessary because the web novel had too much content to adapt, but a good part of the problem would be solved if the anime simply took inspiration from one of the best anime ever made, Nanatsu no Taizai. Okay, I know this might sound like a joke, but hear me out. In Nanatsu, there's always a small bit before the opening where a narrator gives context about the world or the plot at that moment. Meanwhile, Lord of Mysteries has something similar, but it just repeats the same thing.
In the hidden world of Beyonders, humans must depend upon a variety of potions.
Let me show you what should have been done to make it easier for the viewer to understand.
In the hidden world of the Beyonders, humans can hit a variety of buttons such as like, subscribe, or share to help the Seibaa TV channel grow and rival the gods.
No jokes this time. The anime could have used that opening segment to give a different insight each episode, explaining world details in a more interesting way than uses classes, and even better, because it would be inside a regular episode. With that, we can see how the way Lord of Mysteries is told can create confusion and reduce understanding of a story that is good, while To Be Hero X keeps things clear and uses its different narrative structure to give the plot an even more special feel. But talking about the characters is more important than that, because they're the ones who turn bad stories into acceptable ones, and excellent stories into something even more special. Fortunately, both anime have great characters, but the big difference lies in the connection we establish with them. Klein is far from a generic isekai protagonist. He becomes powerful, but not excessively so. He's proactive and fights for his goal of going home, but his actions don't carry a very strong emotional weight. Of course, we can relate to the feeling of wanting to go home. Just ask E.T. But why not show him remembering why that home is so dear to him? Meanwhile, it only takes a few episodes to understand what drives the characters in To Be Hero X, and with such a vast cast, it's hard not to connect with at least one. From a father who wants to bond with his daughter, to the pure desire of become a hero because of one inspiration. Is it just me, or I just described the Buddy Pine? The challenges they face during their arcs transform the heroes forever, and leave us intrigued to see how their new versions will behave. On the other hand, Lord of Mysteries can deliver a lot of emotion when it tackles perspectives other than Klein, and transforms its supporting characters and then they're dead. To be honest, not all of them die, but the anime pulls a Naruto and starts delving into a side character when he's already halfway into the grave. This is done to bring more depth and weight to Klein's journey, showing that the characters serve the narrative, which is different from To Be Hero X, where they're the stars of the show, and the main plot only starts to be revealed further down the line. But I still feel that Lord of Mysteries' stories don't hit the protagonist as hard as they should. For example, after learning his teacher's past in episode 6, Klein gains a powerful ally who helps him push the plot forward, and Copy Hour Aragorn by summoning ghosts. He also shows a desire to connect more with his siblings, Benson and Melissa. So of course we got more moments of Klein bonding with them. Of course not. They only share about 3 more scenes, and the result is an extremely reduced emotional impact in the season finale. By contrast, To Be Hero X clearly shows how Loli gains confidence to become a heroine thanks to her new friend, or how Iso flips to pure malice because of his guilt over the guy who stole his girl. Even the dog is fleshed out in just one episode.
Look at him, isn't he a good boy?
Of course, nothing's perfect, because this attention to characters can overdo it a bit, like with Johnny, who gets a flashback that runs way too long, but I still prefer that over Lord of Mysteries' Rush, where there's no room to breathe and the boss's arc, for example, gets crammed into the last episode. So it's important to make it clear that To Be Hero X uses its non-linear structure, gorgeous animation, and unique power system to tell a refreshing narrative even within the saturated superhero genre, managing to tackle several different themes through its many protagonists and leaving you eager to know what will happen in the next chapters. It's simply more efficient in its storytelling and shows why it was made for TV. Meanwhile, Lord of Mysteries has brilliant story and production, but makes some mistakes in how it puts that together on screen, leaving people confused for no reason and missing the chance to make better use of its characters, which feels like the reflection of an adaptation that can improve. That's why it's a disappointment. While To Be Hero X is the absolute cinema that since its first season has made its mark on the world of animation. But now I want to hear from you. Which anime should appear next in this segment? And what do you prefer? Becoming a confident hero or walking the clown's path with Klein?